My Uncle Robert's retirement party was supposed to be the social event of the season, a lavish gala that Aunt Linda claimed she organized herself. But when she used the microphone to publicly humiliate me as the family failure, she didn't realize the event planner was about to announce the anonymous platinum sponsor, who actually paid the $50,000 bill, me. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The invitation sat on my marble kitchen island like a physical threat. It was heavy cardstock, cream-colored with gold embossed lettering, smelling faintly of manufactured lavender. The retirement celebration of Robert J. Miller, it announced, followed by a venue name that made my stomach tighten, the Gilded Oak Country Club. I stared at it, my hands trembling slightly. It wasn't the venue that scared me, nor the occasion. It was the handwritten note scrawled on the back in red ink, underlining the aggression in every loop of the cursive. Lauren tried to dress appropriately for once. No handouts this time. Entry is $150 a plate. Don't embarrass us. Aunt Linda. I set my coffee mug down, the porcelain clinking sharply against the granite counter. It had been 3 months since I'd last spoken to them. 3 months since I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that had left me physically drained, thinner than usual and emotionally raw. I was currently in remission, but the fatigue still clung to me like a second skin. My doctor had advised avoiding stress, yet here I was, staring at the primary source of every anxiety attack I'd had since childhood. My phone buzzed. It was Linda. Of course, she would call to ensure the arrow had landed. I took a deep breath, pressing the green button. Hello, Aunt Linda. Did you get the invite? Her voice was shrill, cutting through the speaker. There was no, how are you? No, hope you're feeling better. Just the demand. I did, I said, my voice raspy. I cleared my throat. It looks expensive. It is expensive, Lauren, she snapped. Robert deserves the best. He's worked at that bank for 40 years. We aren't cutting corners just because some people in the family can't hold down a real job. I closed my eyes, rubbing my temples. I understand, Linda. I'll be there. And the money, you know we can't cover you. Elena is flying in from Milan. Well, she says Milan, it might be Paris this week, and her dress alone cost more than your car. We have standards to maintain. I can pay for my plate, I said quietly. I'll write a check. Cash, she corrected immediately. Or a transfer beforehand. I don't want a check bouncing on the night of my husband's triumph. And Lauren, please, wear something that doesn't look like you found it in a donation bin. Elena is bringing a few of her influencer friends, important people. I don't want them asking if you're the help. The sting was familiar, a dull ache rather than a sharp pain. They had thought this of me for years. To them, I was Lauren the college dropout. I had left to start a business. Lauren the drifter. I worked remotely. Lauren the failure. I'll look presentable, I promised, my grip tightening on the phone. Good, 7:00 p.m. sharp. Don't be late, and don't sit at the head table. We have reserved seating for the immediate successful family. She hung up before I could say goodbye. I lowered the phone, looking around my living room. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. My apartment was actually the penthouse of a building I owned. The remote work Linda scoffed at was my role as CEO of Vertex Logistics, a supply chain software company that had just closed a Series C funding round, valuing us at over $400 million. But they didn't know that. They didn't know any of it. To Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, and my cousin Elena, I was just the niece they took in when my parents died, the quiet girl who spent too much time on her computer and never brought home a steady paycheck from a 9-to-5 office. I had protected my privacy fiercely, partially out of humility, but mostly out of fear. I knew that if Linda knew the truth, the abuse would shift from mockery to predation. She would drain me dry. But this invitation felt different. The aggression in her voice, the specific demand for money, the way she weaponized Elena's success against me. It felt like they were winding up for a finale. I walked over to the window, looking at my reflection in the glass. I looked tired, pale. My recent illness had taken a toll, and without the armor of designer clothes, which I owned but rarely wore around them, I looked exactly like the struggling stray they imagined me to be. The betrayal wasn't just the insult, it was the timing. They knew I had been sick. I had sent Uncle Robert an email 2 weeks ago explaining my health scare, hoping for a shred of sympathy. His reply had been a forwarded joke chain email. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself, I whispered to the empty room. I looked back at the invitation, the Gilded Oak Country Club. A slow, cold realization washed over me. I picked up my phone and dialed a different number. This one belonged to Marcus, the general manager of the Gilded Oak. Marcus speaking, his smooth voice answered. Marcus, it's Lauren, I said. Ms. Vance, so good to hear from you. I assume this is about the Miller event this Saturday. It is, I said. I just received my invitation. My aunt seems to be under the impression that she organized this event. Marcus hesitated. Well, she certainly picked the colors, but as per our contract, the billing went directly to Vertex Logistics. The platinum package you approved, $50,000 fully paid. Does she know that? I asked, though I already knew the answer. No, Ms. Vance. As you instructed, we told her we had a corporate angel sponsor who covers one community event per year, and her husband was selected. She took the credit immediately. She's been telling everyone she pulled strings with the board of directors. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. I see. She's been quite difficult with the staff, Marcus added gently. She yelled at the florist this morning because the lilies weren't white enough. We're managing it because of you, Ms. Vance. Thank you, Marcus, I said, a plan beginning to form in the back of my mind, a plan born of 30 years of silence. I'll see you on Saturday. And Marcus. Yes. Don't change a thing about the billing, but I might need a favor regarding the program. Anything for our best client. I hung up. The sadness in my chest began to harden into something colder, sharper. They wanted to roast me. They wanted to showcase their success while charging me to eat dinner at a party I paid for. I wasn't just going to attend. I was going to ensure that when the bill came due, everyone knew exactly who had signed it. The days leading up to the party were a blur of physical recovery and mental preparation. My body still ached in the mornings, a lingering reminder of the flare-up that had hospitalized me just weeks prior. It was difficult to explain to people who hadn't experienced chronic illness, the way your own cells seem to turn traitor, leaving you exhausted simply from the act of existing. I spent Friday evening curled up on my oversized sofa, a heating pad on my lower back, scrolling through social media. I rarely checked Instagram, but I needed to see what I was walking into. There was cousin Alina's story. She was filming herself in a mirror, pouting her lips. Just landed, so exhausted from the jet lag. Being a global citizen is hard work, but someone has to bring the glamour to this family. Can't wait to celebrate Daddy Robert tomorrow. Boss babe luxury life, family first. I tapped the screen to see the next clip. It was Aunt Linda, appearing in the background of Alina's video, holding up a dress bag. Make sure you tag the venue, Alina. We want everyone to know we're at the Gilded Oak. None of that community center trash. I put the phone down, feeling a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with my medication. The deception was so layered. Alina didn't live in Milan. She lived in a sublet in New Jersey funded by Uncle Robert's draining retirement savings. Her modeling career consisted of unpaid collaborations and Instagram photo shoots she paid photographers to take. Yet, in the narrative Linda had constructed, Alina was the golden child, the international star, and I was the cautionary tale. On Saturday, I dressed with strategic precision. Aunt Linda had demanded I not embarrass them, implying I should dress nicely, but I knew the game. If I wore my actual clothes, my Chanel blazer, my Louboutins, she would accuse me of wearing knockoffs or spending money I didn't have irresponsibly. If I dressed too plainly, she would mock my poverty. I chose the middle ground, the one that made me invisible. A simple navy blue dress from a department store rack, sensible heels, and minimal makeup. I pulled my hair back into a low bun. I looked like exactly what they thought I was, a tired, administrative assistant scraping by. I drove my old Honda Civic to the venue. I kept it for errands, usually driving my Audi SUV, but today, the Civic was part of the costume. Pulling up to the Gilded Oak felt surreal. The driveway was lined with cypress trees, leading up to the sprawling stone manor that served as the clubhouse. Valets in white jackets were sprinting back and forth, opening doors of Mercedes and Lexus sedans. When I pulled up, the young valet hesitated for a fraction of a second before opening my door. "Welcome to the Gilded Oak, ma'am," he said politely. "Thank you," I said, handing him the keys. As I walked up the grand staircase, I saw them. Aunt Linda was holding court in the foyer, wearing a silver sequined gown that was aggressive in its brightness. Uncle Robert stood beside her in a tuxedo that looked slightly too tight, his face flushed, likely from the open bar I had funded. Cousin Alina was there, too, wearing a red dress with a slit that went dangerously high, posing for a selfie with a bewildered waiter. I took a breath and approached. "Lauren," Linda's voice carried across the marble floor. It wasn't a greeting, it was an announcement. Heads turned. "You made it, and look at you. You look comfortable." Elena lowered her phone and smirked. "Cute dress, Laure. Is that vintage or just old?" "It's nice to see you too, Elena," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Happy retirement, Uncle Robert." Robert looked at me, his eyes glazing over a bit. "Oh, hey, kiddo. Thanks for coming. Big night, big night." "Robert, don't be rude," Linda scolded him, though her eyes were on me. "Check her envelope, dear. We need to make sure everything is squared away before she goes in." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope containing $300 in cash, double what she asked for, just to be safe. I handed it to Robert. "For the plate," I said. Linda snatched it from his hand before he could touch it. She opened the flap, counted the bills right there in the foyer in front of the other guests, and then nodded. "Acceptable. You're at table 19. It's near the kitchen, but the acoustics are actually better back there." "Table 19, I repeated. "Thank you." "Oh, and Lauren," Elena called out as I started to walk away. "Try not to drink too much of the champagne. It's imported. We don't want you getting wild." I paused. The sheer audacity of it almost made me laugh. I turned back, looking Elena dead in the eye. "Don't worry, Elena," I said, my voice dropping an octave, cool and precise. "I know exactly how much everything here costs." Elena blinked, confused by the shift in my tone. Linda narrowed her eyes, sensing something amiss but unable to place it. "Just go sit down," Linda waved her hand dismissively. "We have important guests arriving." I walked into the ballroom. It was magnificent. The chandeliers I had approved via email were glittering overhead. The centerpieces, massive arrangements of white orchids and hydrangeas, were exactly what I had selected during my lunch break 3 months ago. The jazz band playing in the corner was the one I had personally requested because I knew Uncle Robert loved Coltrane. Every detail of this night, every fork, every napkin, every note of music was a manifestation of my money and my care. And yet, I was being banished to table 19. I found the table. It was indeed right next to the swinging kitchen doors. The other occupants were people Linda evidently didn't care about, a distant neighbor, a former coworker of Robert's from 20 years ago, and an elderly couple who seemed lost. I sat down, placing my purse on my lap. My phone buzzed again. It was a text from Marcus, the manager. "Ms. Vance, I see you've been seated at table 19. Would you like me to intervene?" I looked across the room to the head table, where Linda was laughing loudly, throwing her head back, holding a flute of champagne. She looked like a queen on her throne. I typed back, "No, leave it. Let them enjoy the appetizer, but remember the plan for dessert." "Understood," Marcus replied. I looked at the menu card at my place setting, sponsored by a friend of the Miller family. Linda had refused to even let them print a fake sponsor name. She wanted the ambiguity so people would assume it was her connections. But they had forgotten one crucial thing, I thought, watching Linda preen for a photographer. The person who pays the piper calls the tune. As the salad course was served, I found myself slipping into the past. It was a defense mechanism, I suppose. To understand why I was sitting at a table by the kitchen, enduring the insults of a woman wearing a dress that cost more than my first car, you had to understand the history. I was 12 when my parents died in a car accident. It was sudden, violent, and left me an orphan instantly. Uncle Robert was my father's brother, and legally, he was my next of kin. He and Linda took me in, not out of love, but out of obligation, and perhaps for the social security checks that came with me. From the first day I moved into their suburban colonial house, the hierarchy was made clear. Elena, then 10, was the princess. I was the guest who had overstayed her welcome before even unpacking. Lauren, clean your room. Lauren, help with the dishes. Lauren, why can't you be more like Elena? It wasn't physically abusive in the way that leaves bruises, but it was a systematic dismantling of my self-worth. Linda was a master of the backhanded compliment, the subtle exclusion. If Elena got a new bike, I was told I should be grateful for Elena's old one, even if it was rusted. When I got straight A's, Linda would ask why I didn't have as many friends as Elena, who was failing math but popular. But the true resentment stemmed from money. My parents hadn't left a fortune, but they had left a modest life insurance policy. Linda and Robert controlled it until I was 18. By the time I legally accessed the account, it was nearly empty. Room and board, Linda had claimed. Raising a child is expensive, Lauren. You should be thanking us for not putting you in foster care. I didn't argue. I took the few $1,000s left, applied for scholarships, and left for college a week after high school graduation. I worked 3 jobs. I started coding in my dorm room. I built Vertex from a laptop I bought at a pawn shop. I never told them about my success. Why would I? In their eyes, I was broken goods. If I told them I was wealthy, they wouldn't be proud. They would feel entitled to it. They would rewrite history to claim that their parenting made me successful, and therefore, they deserved a cut. Excuse me. I was snapped back to the present by the woman sitting next to me. She was elderly, wearing a hearing aid. Are you Robert's daughter? She asked loudly. Niece, I said. I'm Lauren. Oh, she nodded. The one who has trouble finding work. My jaw tightened. Excuse me. Linda was telling us earlier, the woman said, oblivious to the insult. She said poor Lauren is between paths right now. It must be hard, dear. Have you tried applying at the grocery store? They're hiring. I looked toward the head table. Linda was whispering something to Elena, and they both looked in my direction and giggled. She had been priming the room. She was ensuring that everyone saw me not as a person, but as a charity case. Suddenly, the music stopped. A spotlight hit the small stage at the front of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, the DJ announced, please welcome the man of the hour, Robert Miller, and his lovely wife, Linda. Applause erupted. Robert stood up, looking a bit wobbly. Linda grabbed his arm, beaming. She took the microphone. Thank you all, Linda gushed. She looked sleek, polished, and entirely fake. Robert has worked so hard for 40 years. He deserves this night. He deserves the best. She paused for effect. And I admit, she laughed, a tinkling, practiced sound, pulling this night together wasn't easy. I had to call in a lot of favors. I had to twist some arms on the board of directors. A murmur of appreciation went through the crowd. She was claiming my $50,000 as her own personal influence. But we do it for family, she continued, her eyes scanning the room. Because in the Miller family, success is expected. We strive for greatness. She turned to Elena. Like my beautiful daughter Elena, who just flew in from Fashion Week in Europe to be here. Elena stood up and waved, blowing kisses. The room clapped. I took a sip of water, trying to swallow the bitterness. And, Linda's voice dropped, becoming syrupy sweet, we even welcome those who struggle, because charity starts at home, doesn't it? Her eyes found me at table 19. The spotlight followed her gaze, swinging across the room to land directly on my face. I froze. Lauren, she said into the microphone, wave to everyone, dear. I didn't move. She's shy, Linda laughed. But we're so glad she could scrape together the funds to be here. We know it's not easy for you, Lauren, but tonight you eat like a queen on us. The room chuckled. It wasn't a malicious laugh from everyone. Some probably thought it was good-natured teasing. But to me, it was a public flaying. Then the man sitting to Linda's left stood up. It was Mr. Henderson, Robert's boss. He looked uncomfortable. Linda, he whispered, but the mic picked it up. Maybe we should focus on Robert. Oh, hush, Linda waved him off. I'm just saying it's a contrast. Robert, the provider, Elena, the star, and Lauren, well, Lauren is our little project. She leaned into the mic, her face serious now. Lauren, I noticed you didn't bring a gift. That's okay. Your presence is enough. But really, dear, look at your uncle. Look at this room. Let's hope you amount to something before you're 70, Because at this rate, I don't think there's going to be a retirement party for you. The room erupted. This time, the laughter was louder, fueled by the open bar and the herd mentality. They were laughing at the joke, at the pathetic niece in the cheap dress at the back table. All eyes were on me. The heat rose in my cheeks, not from shame, but from a burning, cold fury. I saw Elena laughing so hard she had to hold her napkin to her mouth. Even Uncle Robert was chuckling, shaking his head as if to say, "Oh, that Linda." I didn't look away, I didn't cry. I slowly picked up my glass of water. I raised it in a silent toast. To Linda. My face remained completely blank. Linda blinked, seemingly annoyed that I hadn't broken down or stormed out. She huffed. Well, enjoy the salad, everyone. The spotlight clicked off me. The darkness returned to table 19. My God, the elderly woman next to me whispered. That was harsh. It's fine, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. She enjoys her stories. I looked at my watch. It was 7:45 p.m. 30 minutes until dessert. 30 minutes until the speech I had arranged with Marcus. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. I navigated to the transfer I had scheduled for Uncle Robert, a surprise retirement gift of $10,000 I had planned to give him privately. I hit cancel. Then I opened my email and composed a message to my lawyer. Subject: The Miller Trust. Body: revoke the standing offer to buy the house at 12 Maple Street. I am no longer interested in assisting with their mortgage refinancing. Proceed with the eviction notice for the tenant in my property in Jersey City. The tenant in Jersey City was cousin Elena. She didn't know I owned the building. She thought she was renting from a faceless corporation that was lenient with her late payments. I hit send. The time for being the victim was over. The strategist had just clocked in. The main course was filet mignon with truffled mashed potatoes. It was delicious, cooked to perfection by the chefs I had vetted. I ate mechanically, fueling myself for what was to come. As the waiters cleared the plates, I decided to move. I needed to speak to Marcus one last time to ensure the timing was perfect. I stood up and navigated through the tables. People avoided eye contact with me. I was the pariah, the project, the punchline. I heard whispers as I passed. Is that the niece? She looks decent enough, why can't she find a job? Linda said she has attitude problems. I kept my head high, walking toward the hallway that led to the kitchens and the manager's office. Where do you think you're going? I stopped. Cousin Elena was blocking my path. She had a glass of red wine in her hand, and her stance was aggressive. Restroom, I lied smoothly. The staff restrooms are in the back, she sneered. Guest restrooms are for guests. I paid for my ticket, Elena. I'm a guest. She stepped closer, invading my personal space. She smelled of expensive perfume and wine. "You're an embarrassment, Lauren. Mom was right to call you out. Look at you. You walk around like you're better than us, but you're nothing. You're 34 and you have nothing to show for it." I looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the layers of makeup and the designer dress, I saw the insecurity. She was terrified. She was 32, living on her parents' dime, pretending to be a success while drowning in debt. I knew about the debt because I had run a background check on her when she applied for the apartment in my building under a shell company's name. "Elena," I said softly, "are you enjoying your apartment in Jersey City?" She froze. "What?" "The loft, the one with the view of the river. It's nice, isn't it? Although I hear the management company is getting strict about late rent." Her eyes widened. How do you know where I live? I told Mom I was in Manhattan." "I know a lot of things," I said, stepping around her. "I know you're 3 months behind on rent. I know your modeling agency is just a P.O. box. And I know that dress is a rental because I saw the tag peeking out." Elena gasped, reaching behind her to check her dress. "You should sit down, Elena," I said over my shoulder. "You're going to want to be seated for the next part." I left her standing there, mouth agape, and slipped into the corridor. Marcus was waiting for me by the service entrance. He looked grim. "Ms. Vance," he said, "are you sure you want to proceed? I heard what she said on the microphone. It was unprofessional." "It was cruel, Marcus," I corrected him. "And yes, proceed, but I want to change one detail." "Anything." "When you announce the sponsor," I said, my voice cold, "I don't want you to just read the name. I want you to explain exactly what the platinum package includes." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That includes the itemized receipt for the bar tab." "Everything," I said. "I want them to know exactly how much charity they accepted tonight." "Very well," Marcus nodded. "I'll take the stage in 10 minutes, right before the cake is cut." I nodded and turned to go back into the ballroom. As I walked, I felt a strange vibration in my pocket. It was my work phone. I checked it. A notification from my security team. "Alert, unauthorized access, attempt at 12 Maple Street." That was Linda's house. My childhood home. I still had a dormant alarm code on the system because I had paid to upgrade their security 2 years ago, anonymously, of course. I checked the logs. The code used wasn't Linda's or Robert's. It was a guest code I had given to a contractor years ago. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I held the keys to their kingdom in my pocket, and they were throwing stones at me. I returned to table 19. The room was dimming again. The waiters were bringing out champagne flutes for the toasts. Uncle Robert stood up again, looking significantly more inebriated. "I just want to say," he slurred slightly, "that I have the best family, the best wife. Linda, you made this happen. You're a magician." Linda beamed, blowing him a kiss. "Behind every great man is a woman who organizes his life," she shouted. The crowd cheered. "And," Robert continued, "I want to thank the sponsors. Linda said we had some big corporate sponsors. I don't know who they are, but hey, thanks for the booze." He raised his glass. "To retirement, to the good life." "To the good life," the crowd echoed. I raised my glass, but I didn't drink. I watched Marcus walk up the side stairs to the stage. He was holding a clipboard. He signaled the DJ to cut the music. The room went quiet. People looked confused. This wasn't on the schedule. "Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said, his voice booming through the speakers. He had a commanding presence that silenced the room instantly. "My name is Marcus Thorne, General Manager of the Gilded Oak." Linda looked annoyed. She stood up halfway. "We're doing toasts right now," she hissed. "Please, Mrs. Miller, take your seat," Marcus said, not unkindly but with authority. "I have a contractual obligation to fulfill." Linda sat down, looking confused. "Tonight has been a spectacular evening," Marcus continued. "But there has been a slight omission in the program. It is the policy of the Gilded Oak to publicly acknowledge our platinum-level sponsors. Without their generosity, an event of this magnitude, the 5-course meal, the top-shelf open bar, the live band, would not be possible. A hush fell over the room. Everyone loved a mystery benefactor. Mrs. Miller mentioned earlier that she pulled strings with the board, Marcus said, glancing at Linda. Linda smiled nervously, nodding. However, Marcus said, looking down at his clipboard, our records show that the entire cost of this evening, totaling $53,400, was paid by a single entity. The number hung in the air, 53,000, you could hear a pin drop. We would like to invite the CEO of that entity to the stage to accept a plaque of appreciation, Marcus said. Linda looked around wildly, expecting a boss from the bank or perhaps a wealthy friend. Please put your hands together, Marcus said, his eyes locking directly onto table 19, for the founder and CEO of Vertex Logistics, Ms. Lauren Vance. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The name hung in the air like smoke. Lauren Vance. I saw Linda's face contort, first in confusion, then in disbelief, and finally in a rictus of horror. Uncle Robert's jaw literally dropped. Elena, who had been applying lip gloss, froze with the wand halfway to her mouth. I stood up. The scraping of my chair against the floor echoed in the silent ballroom. I smoothed my cheap dress, picked up my purse, and began the long walk from table 19 to the stage. As I walked, the silence broke. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Lauren, the niece. Vertex Logistics. Isn't that the tech company? CEO, I thought she was unemployed. I walked past Elena. She looked at me as if I were an alien. I offered her a small, tight smile. Close your mouth, Elena. It's not a good look. I ascended the stairs to the stage. Marcus stepped aside, handing me the microphone. He didn't hand me a plaque. There was no plaque. That was just the ruse. I stood center stage, the spotlight blindingly bright. I looked out at the sea of faces, the same faces that had laughed at me 30 minutes ago. Thank you, Marcus, I said. My voice was calm, amplified clearly through the room. And happy retirement, Uncle Robert. I turned to look at the head table. Linda was standing now, her face a mask of fury and panic. What is this? Linda screeched, forgetting the microphone. What kind of joke is this? She doesn't have that kind of money. She's lying. It's not a joke, Linda, I said into the mic. And frankly, for 50 grand, I expected better seating than table 19. A gasp rippled through the crowd. You paid, Robert stammered, standing up. Lauren, you paid for this. I did, I said. I paid for the venue. I paid for the flowers you're staring at. I paid for the steak you just ate. I even paid for the champagne Linda has been drinking all night. Liar, Linda shouted, pointing a shaking finger at me. She's a receptionist. She lives in a dump. She's trying to steal our thunder. I looked at Marcus. He nodded and tapped his tablet, which was connected to the large projector screen behind the stage, usually used for slideshows of the retiree. Instead of photos of Robert fishing, a document appeared on the massive screen. It was the invoice, the Gilded Oak Country Club, bill to Vertex Logistics, authorized signatory, Lauren Vance, CEO, status, paid in full. The room turned to look at the screen. Then they turned back to Linda. I started Vertex Logistics 7 years ago, I said, addressing the room. We specialize in AI-driven supply chain management. We operate in 12 countries. I didn't tell my family because I wanted a relationship based on love, not money. But tonight, I paused, letting the emotion bleed into my voice. Not sadness, but disappointment. Tonight, I learned that without money, I have no value to you. I sat back there and watched you mock me. I listened to you tell a room full of strangers that I was a failure, that I needed to amount to something before I was 70. I turned to face Linda directly. I'm 34, Aunt Linda, and I just bought and paid for your entire reality. Linda was shaking. She looked around for support, but the guests were recoiling. They realized they had been part of a bullying campaign against the very person who was feeding them. You ungrateful brat, Linda screamed, losing all composure. After everything we did for you, we took you in, we fed you. You took my inheritance, I corrected her, my voice icy. You drained my parents' insurance policy to remodel your kitchen. I saw the bank records years ago. I never said anything because I wanted to keep the peace. But the peace is over. Get off the stage, Elena yelled, standing up to defend her mother. You're ruining everything. You're just jealous because you're alone and miserable. Elena, I said, my tone shifting to one of pity. You might want to save your energy. You have a lot of packing to do. What? Elena snapped. The building you live in, the Hudson Lofts. I gestured to the screen. Marcus swiped the tablet. A deed appeared on the screen. Owner, LV Holdings, a subsidiary of Vertex Logistics. I own your building, Elena, I said. And since you're 3 months behind on rent, and since you just publicly insulted your landlord, consider this your eviction notice. Elena turned pale white. She slumped back into her chair. The room was chaotic now. People were whispering frantically, some were even laughing, at Linda and Elena. I looked at Uncle Robert. He looked broken. He looked like a man waking up from a long dream. Lauren, he whispered, I didn't know. You never asked, Uncle Robert, I said softly. You were too busy laughing at Linda's jokes. I placed the microphone back on the stand. Enjoy the dessert, I said to the room. It's creme brulee, it's expensive. I hope it tastes like victory. I walked off the stage. The silence had shattered into a roar of conversation, but as I moved through the crowd, the waters parted. People weren't avoiding me out of disdain anymore. They were moving out of respect or fear. Ms. Vance, a man in a suit, reached out as I passed. I'm with Chase Manhattan. We've been trying to get a meeting with Vertex for months. I had no idea. Call my assistant on Monday, I said without stopping. I headed for the exit. I had said my piece. I wanted to leave while the impact was fresh. But Linda wasn't done. She came charging across the dance floor, intercepting me near the foyer. Her face was flushed, her eyes wild. You can't do this, she hissed, grabbing my arm. I pulled my arm away sharply. Don't touch me. You think you can just humiliate us and leave? She spat. You owe us, we raised you. If you have so much money, why have you been letting us struggle? Robert has been stressed about this retirement for years. We have a second mortgage. That's not my problem, Linda, I said. I offered to help with the mortgage refinancing last year. You told me to mind my own business because I didn't understand finance. You tricked us, she screamed. You played poor. I didn't play poor. I played humble. You just couldn't tell the difference because you don't know what humility looks like. Uncle Robert came up behind her, panting. Linda, stop. Everyone is watching. Let them watch, Linda shrieked. She's a snake, a liar. She paid for the party, Linda, Robert yelled, his voice cracking. It was the first time I had ever heard him yell at her. Linda froze. She paid for everything, Robert said, looking at me with watery eyes. The music, the food, my big night, you told me you did it. You told me you saved up. Linda stammered. I managed it, I coordinated it. You took credit for her money, Robert said, his voice filling with disgust. And then you stood on that stage and mocked her. I was joking, Linda pleaded. It was a roast. It was cruelty, I said, and it ends tonight. I looked at Robert. I'm sorry, Uncle Robert. I wanted you to have a nice night. I really did, but I cowl. D'Ant sit there and let her destroy me anymore. I know, Robert said, hanging his head. I should have stopped her years ago. Yes, I said, you should have. Elena appeared, looking frantic. Lauren, wait, about the apartment? You can't be serious. I have nowhere to go. My friends, they think I own it. Then tell your friends the truth, I said. It's liberating, try it. But I'm family, Elena wailed. Family treats you with respect, I said. You treated me like a wallet you couldn't open. Well, the wallet is closed. I turned to the valet stand. The young man who had parked my Civic was staring at me with wide eyes. He scrambled to get my keys. Ms. Vance, Marcus appeared at my elbow. The guests are unsettled, but many are asking for your contact information. Give it to them, I said, except for the ones at the head table. Understood. I took my keys. I looked back one last time. Linda was sobbing, not out of remorse, but out of humiliation. Elena was frantically texting, probably trying to spin a story on social media. Robert was just standing there, looking old and tired. I got into my Honda Civic. It rattled as I started it. I drove away from the Gilded Oak, leaving the $50,000 party behind. The climax wasn't just the speech. It was the immediate aftermath, the dismantling of the illusion Linda had built. The next morning, my phone blew up, but not with insults. I had voicemails from 3 of Robert's former colleagues apologizing for laughing. I had an email from the bank where Robert worked, congratulating me on my success. And then the legal storm began. Linda, in her desperation, tried to go on the offensive. She posted a long, rambling rant on Facebook claiming I had stolen the money from them, that I had embezzled my inheritance. It was a foolish move. I didn't respond on Facebook. I responded with a cease and desist order for defamation, attached to a forensic accounting of the trust fund they had drained. My lawyers sent it to her by courier on Monday morning. But the real climax happened 3 days later. I went to my office, the real one, a glass-walled sanctuary in the financial district. My assistant buzzed me. "Lauren, your uncle is here. He says it's urgent." I hesitated. "Send him in." Robert walked in. He looked different. He wasn't wearing the ill-fitting suits Linda usually picked out for him. He was wearing a simple sweater and jeans. He looked smaller, but clearer. "Nice place," he said, looking around the office. "Thanks, Uncle Robert." He sat down. I left her. I blinked. "What?" "Linda, I moved into a motel last night. I can't do it anymore, Lauren. Watching you on that stage, hearing what you said. It broke something in me. The spell, maybe." He sighed, rubbing his hands together. "She's spiraling. She's blaming you, blaming me, blaming the world. But she won't look in the mirror. And Elena is back home, screaming because her key card stopped working." "I didn't actually evict her yet," I admitted. "I just deactivated the amenities, the gym and the pool." Robert cracked a small smile. "Cruel, I like it." He looked at me, his eyes filling with tears. "I'm sorry, Lauren, for the money, for the childhood, for Saturday." "Thank you," I said. It was the first time I had felt light in years. "I don't want anything from you," he said quickly. "I just wanted you to know I'm retiring for real this time. Just me. I'm going to get a small fishing cabin up north." I looked at this man who had failed me, but who was finally trying to make it right. "Uncle Robert," I said, "Vertex has a corporate retreat cabin in the Adirondacks. It's empty most of the year. It has a great fishing dock." He looked up. "Lauren, I couldn't." "It's not for you," I said firmly. "It's for the uncle who didn't laugh when I fell off my bike when I was 6. I remember that uncle. I miss him." Robert wiped his eyes. "He's been gone a long time, but I think he's coming back." The fallout was swift and permanent. Linda and Robert divorced. Without Robert's pension to drain, he secured it in his own name during the proceedings. Linda's lifestyle collapsed. She had to sell the big house. The last I heard, she was living in a small condo, complaining to anyone who would listen about her ungrateful niece and traitorous husband. She is alone. Cousin Elena had to move out of the loft. She tried to launch a smear campaign against me on TikTok, calling me a slumlord. It backfired spectacularly when internet sleuths found her public posts mocking me for being poor, juxtaposed with the truth. She was canceled within 48 hours. She's currently working retail in Ohio. Uncle Robert is enjoying the cabin. We talk once a week. He's learning to cook for himself. He seems happy. As for me, I stopped hiding. I started wearing my nice clothes. I did an interview with Forbes. When they asked about my background, I told them the truth. I built my empire because I had no safety net. I built it because I had to be my own hero. I still drive the Honda Civic sometimes, though. It reminds me of where I came from, and it reminds me that true worth isn't about the brand on your car or the price of your party. It's about who you are when the music stops and the bill comes due. I paid my bill, and I kept the receipt.